Seeing as soon as I see, okay, it's recording. Welcome to Real, Raw and Uncut with love coach Tamara and myself, intimacy coach Viloshni. This show is brought to you by Loveology University for higher learning and loving. Our mission is to empower adults through positive, accurate education on love, romance, relationships, intimacy, and human sexuality across the globe. If you want to become a love or relationship coach, go to loveuniv.com and help make the world a more loving place.
So today we have Dr. Ava Cadell, and she is the founder of Loveology University. Dr. Ava is a clinical sexologist and AASECT certified counselor with doctorates in human behavior and human sexuality. As the founder of Loveology University, her mission is to mentor and share her knowledge with motivated students to become certified loveologists like myself and Viloshni. Dr. Ava, through her private practice, counsels individuals and couples on personal issues, including mismatched sex drive, power struggles, infidelity, orgasm behaviors, fear of intimacy, sexual compulsion, and sexual healing. She is also a love guru, a media therapist, author, and a worldwide speaker. So we'd like to thank you, Dr. Ava, for coming on with us today.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Tamara and Viloshni. It's nice to see you both.
It is such an honor, Dr. Ava, to have you on our show and to have you chatting with us tonight and sharing your expertise. We have been blessed to be students of the wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us through Loveology University. And I'm sure tonight we're going to be adding a lot of value to a lot of people out there.
I hope so.
So what we'd like to know is, and what we would want you to share with us is, how did you land on your niche? How did you land on this difficult niche of sex, love, and relationships?
I love the way you put that. I've never heard of landing on my niche before, but I like it. But the truth is that I landed through adversity. As I was raised with guilt and shame about my body and about sex, it was said that it was a mortal sin. So I grew up to be a very confused teenager, and my relationships were extremely unhealthy and even abusive. And that's when I just knew that I had to learn about love and relationships and sex in order to find a healthy relationship for me. And then when I did find a healthy relationship, that's when I knew my mission was to help others overcome their guilt, their shame, all that negative programming which they experienced as children. So that was the main trigger for me. Yeah.
Wow, that's really good. A lot of people definitely need that. So, we thank you for that. My question for you is, what was the motivating factor for you in starting Loveology University?
You're going to like this, Tamara. I don't think you've ever asked me this question.
No, never asked.
So one of the motivating factors behind Loveology University was when I was the keynote speaker for passion parties in Las Vegas to over 1,000 women. And looking at these amazing women, I saw this enthusiasm that they had for more sexual knowledge. And that's when I had this aha moment to create an online university to empower them, because these women were working as consultants for passion parties, and they made their money selling pleasure products. But I wanted to help them further to get certified as love coaches so that they could add that to their services and they could help more women and they could also make more money. And that is how I met Tamara, because Tamara, you had your own pleasure party consulting business. And so I thank Passion Parties, which no longer is, right? They were bought out by Pure Romance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. But when I first worked with them, they were huge. I think they were almost as big as Pure Romance.
Oh, they were actually bigger.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And I have to say, I just love these women in the audience. I mean, the minute I walked out, they were like hollering and hooting and standing. And gosh, I've just never seen women so hungry for knowledge about human sexuality. And so, yeah, it was a real epiphany for me.
Wow, that is interesting because, you know, I feel like that even makes it much more for me because you started this university for people like me who actually were out there looking for education and you know doing parties. And so wow, that's even more impressive for me, for sure.
I'm so happy because many of our students do come from that background.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, and it's just amazing, Dr. Ava, just hearing you speak about this epiphany. It's almost like the universe conspires to give us the message and how it actually makes a difference in so many people's lives. Because it's through these stories that people's lives become changed and people take decisions. Because I also have a story, and thus I came upon Loveology. So,
yes, how?
I went through a divorce 10 years ago, and through my healing, I realized the lack of sex education and all the negative conditioning actually held me back. So even though I was growing and thriving in the corporate workplace, I still just felt very unsettled within, even though I felt like I was doing enough, you know, self-healing and work for myself. But once I came across Loveology and I started the program and did the courses, you get so much more out of it than what you actually realize. And then you feel so empowered and so driven that you want to do this for other people. So I can very well understand where you're coming from.
Thank you. So let me ask you a question. If you had found Loveology University before you were divorced, before you were unhappy in your marriage, do you think you would have stayed married with all the information that you had, or would you still have wanted to divorce and reinvent your life?
I think I would have divorced and reinvented my life because mine was domestic violence. So it was
wow.
Yeah. So that was something that was unacceptable.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker for sure. So many women go through that. And then they're afraid to leave for many different reasons. You know,
absolutely.
One, of course, is for any kind of revenge from the person who's violent towards you anyway. And then another is women just get so comfortable in their surroundings. I have a client right now who loves the way that she lives because it's quite luxurious, but she's being abused physically and emotionally. And she just doesn't know which is more important. So it's very difficult. And I have to say that my very first boyfriend, I think I was 16, was extremely violent. And I just thought all men were like that. I had no idea,
Mm-hmm.
because I was raised with such limited information about relationships. I was actually raised by nuns, very strict nuns. And so he would, really beat me. He threw hot coffee in my face. He was a very, very violent man. And the only time he didn't hurt me was when we had sex. So we had a lot of sex. And
Yeah.
he taught me a lot about sex. And I ended up really liking sex because I wasn't being abused while I was
Mm.
having physical sex. So that was an interesting education for me during that time. In one way, I'm glad that I had an abusive relationship when I was 16 because I never had another one afterwards. I
Oh,
looked for
yeah.
those signs, and I'm sure you too. You know now
Yeah.
if a man is going to, even just be rude to you or yell at you, you run the other way.
Absolutely.
But some women are stuck. They
Mm.
can't get out of that pattern. And we have to help those women as much as we can.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. Yeah. And talking about sex, this is quite an industry which still, well, in South Africa, I can say this, that there's a lot of taboo attached to sex. There's so many misnomers. As soon as people hear that I'm an intimacy coach, the perception is that, oh, I'll send people to you that like sex. I'm a very conservative person, and they kind of want to pull away. So I can imagine at the time that you got into this, um, you would have probably been faced with this similar kind of challenges. Do you want to share some of those with us? And maybe, if you did, and how did you overcome them?
Well, yes, certainly there were lots of challenges. First of all, many people don't even know what a sexologist is. I went and got a doctorate in human behavior and another one in human sexuality. So I wasn't always taken seriously. They thought, oh, she's probably having sex with her clients. And then I'd have to educate them and say, no, it's talking and advising. And so I did have challenges to overcome where people would minimize my expertise and treat me like a novelty. So this is where it's very important for us to be authentic, because another challenge is trying to please everybody. You can't. So you want to really show them that you're vulnerable. Even if they ask you a question that you don't know, you want to thank them and say, that's a great question. I'm going to find out the answer for you. So it's very important, if you want to be taken seriously, to actually show your vulnerability, to tell people your story so that they don't think you have a perfect life. Because looking at the three of us, some people might think, oh, they've never had a problem with relationships or sex. Look at them, they're happy, they're successful, but it's not true. So those are some challenges. And then the other challenges that you touched upon is when I traveled around the world lecturing for the Young Presidents Organization, I really had to do my homework because, for example, in India, they have arranged marriages. In China, I was going there on a regular basis to empower women. They wanted to know how they could be as confident as the American woman. And what I didn't realize in the beginning is what a male-dominated country it was.
Right.
It was the men that needed the seminars, not the women, but the men would never admit that. So many challenges. And that's one of the reasons I love to mentor people like yourselves and anybody out there who wants to do what we do, so that I can help them overcome any obstacles that may be in their way, blocking their success.
Yeah, I remember when I first started with Loveology, you asked me a question and I didn't know how to answer it. And that question was, how do you value yourself? And until I was able to answer that question is when I became more, I was more excited, but also I learned how to do the business in a more professional way. Because I felt like I couldn't answer a simple question. And it took you just asking one question that I couldn't answer at that time.
Wow. Well, you know, Tamara, asking specific questions really is the answer to so many things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question that I like to ask my couples who are going through a crisis. And I usually ask them individually. And the question is, how would you feel if you never, ever saw your partner again? And guess what most of the answers are for people who really have come to a breaking point in their relationship? What do you think the answer is? Viloshni probably knows because of her divorce.
I don't know.
No? So most people would say relief. If I never saw my partner again, I would be relieved. But if they said I would miss them, then I would tell them the relationship is still worth fighting for. Yeah. But yeah, questions are so prolific. I mean, as a love coach, there are questions that you can ask, which can take a whole session. You know, like asking a client what their relationship needs are in priority. So for some people, it might be, hey, it might be looks, it might be money, it might be intelligence, it might be humor, it might be religion. There's so many answers.
I know.
And then I have them like do a vision board and create like pictures and words. And this is for people who are single, who haven't even met that love yet. You have to visualize who you want to meet and how they're going to fit into your lifestyle. Because you know I'm a great believer in manifestation, right?
Yeah. So that goes into our next question is, what advice would you give someone who's never found love before? Or who's looking for that special someone?
So that's really, really tough. I wrote a book called 12 Steps to Everlasting Love. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm in my office, so I actually have one right here. It's a very old book, but it's a journal, and it has 4 very specific weekly exercises that you have to do. It's a 30-day action plan. So in week 1, it's about healing. So healing from past relationships. If you've never had a past relationship, you still have some healing to do. Perhaps it's the way that you were raised. Perhaps it's the way that you visualized your parents' love life. Perhaps it's being bullied by someone else. But healing is step 1, because like does attract like. And if you're broken, you're more than likely to attract another broken heart, another broken person. So then week 2 is about valuing yourself with those great questions to raise your self-esteem. Like, what qualities do you have to bring to a relationship? And then what qualities do you want someone else to bring into the relationship for you? And usually they're quite synonymous. And then week 3 is focusing on where do you go to find that everlasting love that you're looking for. So before COVID, we were going out a lot more to various places, you know, whether it was even restaurants or seminars or art galleries. But where do you think you're going to find that person that you're looking for? So if you're looking for somebody who's health conscious, you can go to a health food store, a restaurant, a gym when they were open, a seminar about health. If you're looking for somebody who's a doctor, you could volunteer in a hospital. So really analyzing where that person is going to be is important. I had one client, and she kept dating men who were alcoholics. And I said to her, I said, by the way, where have you been meeting these men? I'm sure you can guess the answer, right?
At a bar.
Yeah, at a bar, absolutely. So you want to break patterns. You want to break any negative patterns of relationships that didn't work out. And then week 4 is about keeping that everlasting love emotionally, physically, sexually, and spiritually alive, so that it's not a one-night stand. You know, it's not just a short-term relationship. I do believe in everlasting love. I also believe that there are more than just one soulmate per person. So for anybody who hasn't found love yet, love yourself, treat yourself as if you're madly in love with you, date yourself, and be ready for when you meet that other person, whether it's online or in person. You need to be ready, because you know what it's like when you're not ready and an opportunity comes along, you lose out on the opportunity. Mm-hmm. So, but the book is filled with opening lines. It's filled with giving compliments. It's filled, you know, with carrying props that get people to talk to you. And yeah, it's one of my oldest books, but it was important for me to write that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really good. And definitely anyone who is looking should look into getting that book.
Yeah, it's still on Amazon, but also it's part of our curriculum at Loveology University. It's in the Love course, which is a multimedia course, but the book is also there.
And I think a lot of people, so I work with a lot of students at Loveology, and a lot of times when they come in, they are not so much looking to help other people, but they're looking to help themselves. And so I hear that from a lot of students, that going through the program, they're actually helping themselves first, and then they're able to help others. So,
well, and that's beautiful. If you can help yourself first and then teach others what you learned, then you're a really good teacher and a healer. So I agree with you. And we're all doing that. We're all, you know, in some way, we're all healers. We're all out there trying to improve the quality of people's lives. And love, I mean, I believe that the reason we're even here is to learn how to give and receive love, because we don't learn that. No one teaches us that.
Right. Yep. So, Dr. Ava, we thank you so much for coming on with us today. And all of our viewers, we want to remind you that for you to also find love for yourself and for a partner, you can, come into Loveology University at loveuniv.com and become one of our students. I know it helped me a lot, and helped me fix areas in my life that needed to be fixed. We at Real, Raw, and Uncut, we're here to bring the real, raw, and uncut knowledge that will help you find love, sex, and relationships. So I thank you for coming on and spending your time with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so proud of both of you. You're a really good winning team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's all thanks to you and all the knowledge that was so generously shared with us through Loveology, because the modules, they give you so much more than what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Good. That's important for me, to give people more than they expect. It's one of my niches that is very near and dear to my heart. Lots of luck to you, ladies. I think you're doing great service for everybody around the world.
Thank you so much. So we come every week with different topics, different speakers. So stay tuned, and we will see you next week.